Good morning, afternoon, and or evening. I'm Echowaffle8, playing some more Forza Motorsport 4, and today we have something a bit special-ish. We have a garage tour. This is basically going to be all the cars in my Forza 4 garage, and me talking about them as well. So here we have my 1971 Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR. I got this at one point in the game for ranking up. It's quite good, actually. I recently competed against some other A-class cars with it. It's not bad. This is my Volkswagen Golf GTI Mark III VR6, and it's one of my Nürburgring Challenge cars, along with the two cars you see to your right. I haven't run this one around the Nürburgring yet. I'm going to sometime, but probably not today. This is the Cobalt and the Ford Fusion. This is just something insane I built one day. I believe it has the engine from an SL65 Black Series or something, and it's just crazy. I can't drive it at this point. Through here are my real-life challenge cars, or real-life building cars. This is for a challenge I set up one day involving very, very silly hatchbacks that were impossible to drive. And part of the challenge was you had to hit this Prius, because it's a Prius. And these are like my race series cars. So here we have my Austin Healey Sprite, 73 horsepower. And then the Civic, which I need to do a video on. A Golf GTI Mark II, that one that I was intending to use to compete in a race series that I never entered. A Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL. I think it has the original engine, so it's quite powerful. It has a lot of torque as well, so I do quite like it. My Rabbit GTI, which I actually made for a challenge, a different sort of challenge thing, where everyone just had a GTI of this type. Because this is actually, you can have like 6 engine swaps for this car, and I opted for none of them. So yeah, that's a thing. This is my M635 CSI, as it says up there. And it's quite a good car. I don't usually drive it though, because it's rear-wheel drive, and I actually haven't driven it since I've learned more how to use your rear-wheel drive cars. But yeah, so that's the thing. My Ford Fusion Sport, which is my go-to car for basically A-class. As you can see, it has my waffle livery. It was actually the first one I put the waffle livery on. And it's a really good car. If it has one fault, it's that it just bogs down on the launch. Like when you initially floor it getting off the line at the start of the race, it just bogs down and goes down to 2,000 RPM because the gearing is really short. This is an S2000 that I was experimenting with high red lines for. This one, I believe, revs to 10,000 RPM. I thought it would go higher. This is a Volvo S60R, which is pretty good. It's a little bit slidey and a little bit understeer at the same time, but it's pretty good. Yeah, it's a thing. This is my Volvo 850R that is also pretty good. It's really, really competitive despite the fact that it's just a 706. But yeah, I do quite like driving it as well. It kind of does a bit of everything. It's a really good race car when you want it to be, and then you can literally do Gymkhana with it as well without having to change the tune. This is an Audi, a little TT Coupe. Yeah, and I put a silly body kit on it because of reasons. Yeah, it was a bit it's actually kind of odd. This was I think the first car that I discovered that the tuning for, or basically the way the car behaved on split screen was different to the way it behaved on pretty much single player and things. Because on split screen it's wonderfully neutral, but in single player it just understeers horribly. This is another Volvo. This is the newest one on the game. I experimented with a slightly different livery featuring the colors of the Swedish flag. And I put dark gray shapes on it to simulate having a cross-country type, a Volvo cross-country body kit thing. It's quite a good car. I'm probably going to say that about most of these ones that I've driven. Yeah, I do quite like it. This is another challenge thing I did at one point involving... I cannot remember, but I think it was just a Toyota challenge. Because this one's special because it has a silly rally body kit with what appears to be chicken wire protecting the intercooler. And I think it has a snorkel. I'm sure it does. This is a Mitsubishi FTO, another really good car that I did for a different challenge involving... This one was Japanese cars. Yeah, it was quite nice to drive as well. And this is my Beetle. You've seen my Beetle. This is another one of the silly cars. These are all silly tuned cars. This one I just tuned to be silly and bouncy and go absolutely everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Basically it goes everywhere but the direction you want it to. This is a DeLorean that I tried to put a wheelie tune on. It didn't work. This is a Camaro SS with a silly undrivable tune that someone gave me once. It was quite a challenge to drive. This is a challenge car I made as well that's also quite silly to drive. It falls over a bunch and things, so there is that. And this is the front-wheel drive Ferrari. It appeared once on a YouTube video. I sent it to Fail Race. If you're not familiar with them, you should go check out their channel if you like racing game stuff. So yeah, they did a video on it at one point. I haven't changed it much, I don't think. The tune I sent them may have had slightly more front camber than this one. This one I think has 0.5 degrees. I can't remember if I sent them the 2.5 degree front camber version. And basically what I did with this car to make it front wheel drive, because as you can see it's all wheel drive, excuse me. And there's a setting you can go to in the differential if you have a race differential on it. You can literally just send all the torque to the front wheels, so all the power from the engine is going to the front, which makes for quite a silly car. And beyond here we just have the everything pile. This is the first car I got in the game. It's a Citroen C1. This is the only car I have two of. And this is the one I basically wanted to keep stock. And then we have a Saab 99 Turbo that I bought one day. I cannot remember why. A Fiat 500 Abarth, which the game gave me because I played Forza 3 at one point. A DB5 Vantage, an Aston Martin, that was given to me once because it was Christmas. A Subaru Legacy that I need to get Subaru Affinity for so I can tune it and things. Because right now all I've done to it is I put the 4 rally lights on the front. A Mitsubishi Starion that I got for ranking up. Or an Alt 5 Turbo that I also got for ranking up. A Siren FRS I got as part of a free something. It was given to me for free by Turn 10. This Plymouth was also, I got it by ranking up. As was this Subaru. I haven't driven either of these. I didn't drive this one much. I don't think I've driven this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. I've driven this one, though. This is my police transit. It has the, despite, well, not despite anything, going against the basically the flow of what everyone else does with this thing, I left the stock engine in it, and as a result it has quite a lot of power and torque, because it's a diesel. And then I all-wheel drive converted it, and I think it might have a wheelie tune. Or it might have a wheelie tune. Also note the livery. It's designed to be a combination of classic American and modern British police liveries. This is a Drift Integra, I think. I'm not quite sure though. I think it was intended to be a Drift Integra and then it didn't drift. This is a fully maxed out Chevy Volt that I built one day. I may retune it as well at one point to try and get like the torque curve even, so that the power and torque curves are basically a straight line all the way across. This is a Honda Civic with the racing body kit on it. I can't remember what I really did to it though. And this is a Lotus Elan with all the power you can put in a Lotus, in this little Lotus. It's quite silly. I think I drove it at one point. It doesn't want to go in a straight line. This is basically a Lexus LS 430. No, SC 430, my bad. And it's a little bit slidey. I have to say it's kind of slidey. I would have thought it would have been more balanced than the BMW, because it's, I actually don't know why, but it wasn't. Long story short, this is a stock. I say stock. It's the game-tuned DVS I got for ranking up at one point. I haven't driven it. This is basically a Lexus IS300, or I think it's an IS200. Okay, it's an IS200, and I gave it an all-wheel drive tune. I say all-wheel drive, swapped it, and gave it a bunch of power and stuff. It's quite slidey, but at the same time it's like kind of fun. So yeah, there's that. Another Aston Martin I've never driven, so we'll just skip right past it. A Citroen DS3 with way too much power for what it is. And what it is front-wheel drive. 370 pounds-feet of torque, not what you want when all the power is going through the front wheels. I say that, I have a 1,000 horsepower, 1,100 horsepower nearly front-wheel drive car as well. The Toyota Supra that I painted one day and built up as well. I have no idea what I intended to do with this. I cannot remember. This is an El Camino that I built out one day to see if it was different to the Chevelle that the game gave me, which is here. I haven't driven either of them enough to really make a difference, like to really differentiate the two. Like, I couldn't tell you how they're different to drive. I can tell you one has a pickup bed, but yeah. As for what they're like to drive compared to each other, because they are both fully maxed out. They both have the most powerful engine in them. They have the same kind of engine in them as well. But I couldn't tell you what they're like to drive, what's different between them. This is a race-tuned Citroen C1, which has the same engine as the DS3 does. So it's even worse to drive, really. This is an AMC Havilland. I used to drive. I think I used to drive it a lot, but I don't think I probably haven't driven it in years. I say years. It's probably been like 1 year. I don't remember what this thing drives like. Nor do I remember what this drives like. The Dodge Shelby Omni. I think I liked this one. I cannot remember. This is the Chevelle that I mentioned earlier. This is an AMC Gremlin, which I built one day for reasons of silly. It is quite a silly car. And you've probably noticed the Ram Air Scoop thing on the hood. I can't remember how it drives either. Probably very oversteery. This is the Volkswagen Corrado VR6 that I built up at one point. I think I've had this game for 2 years. This was one of the first cars I ever built, all the way up like this. This is a Celine S5S Raptor that the game gave me, as was this LFA. Go away, cuckoo clock. This is a Chevy Spark that's been rear-wheel drive converted, and it's silly. I say that about most of the cars, or more cars than I thought I would be saying would be silly. This is basically a shooting brake that the game gave me, and I never drove. This was at one point the fastest car in the world that I never drove. This is a rather tail-happy Lotus. That was at one point the fastest sedan in the world. It was quite funny. At one point, the British police complained to Lotus about how this car looked too much like the ordinary Vauxhall Carlton it was built around, but went massively faster than everything else on the road, because all the German car companies voluntarily limited their cars to 155 miles per hour, and as a result the police could catch them. But as this was ungoverned and could go 178 miles per hour stock, it was quite a favorite car of thieves. And they'd just go around and rob banks with this thing, and the police could do pretty much nothing about it. And so obviously Lotus's response to this was, why don't you buy our cars so you can catch them? And this is an Impala that I think was also very slidey. This is a Volvo C30R design that I think out of all the Volvos I have on this game, it's the one I've driven the least. So I couldn't tell you what it was like. This is a Ford Thunderbird that probably was also very slidey at one point. I haven't driven enough of these cars to really tell you what they're like, or driven them recently enough to tell you what they're like. So yeah, that's the thing as well. And then this, I believe at one point it was like I used to race this one a lot, I think. I can't really remember. I can't really remember much about this one either, apart from the fact that I put a silly paint job on it, as you can tell. This side was pretty much painting to look exactly like the Null car that will appear in the game. Basically, whenever you have a car that, like when someone you're racing against online has a car that your game doesn't recognize, it just substitutes in one of these. And so sometimes this can be pretty annoying if you're driving around and you're following someone too closely and you have an accident with this car, and the car your opponent is driving has a car smaller than this. You will bounce off the Bora, and they'll just bounce off, and then your opponent will just see a car spinning itself out of nowhere. This is a Volvo 242 Turbo Revolution that I painted to look like a 262C. But the roof pillars aren't thick enough for you to tell that the roof is brown. So yeah, that's a thing. Mazda RX-7 that I put a silly body kit on. I couldn't tell you why. Also, it has a rotary, a really powerful rotary engine. A BMW M3 that I probably need to do more things with as well. An MX-5 Miata that has the same rotary engine as the RX-7. Another M3 that's been all-wheel drive converted. I can't remember what I originally intended to do with this thing though. A Sierra Cosworth that I remember wasn't as good as my Escort Cosworth to drive. A Ferrari 365 GTB that I converted to all-wheel drive for some reason and put way too much power in. An Opel Speedster Turbo that I bought once because I thought it would have... You would be able to swap in the racing Opel engine, but I was sadly mistaken. A Honda NSXR that I should probably do more stuff with one day. A Dodge Stealth Turbo that has quite a lot of power. I believe no, I didn't put the it's with the stock engine as well. I believe you can swap the Viper V10 into it, but I'm not quite sure. I obviously didn't. A Ford Falcon that was also quite fun to drive. It has the same really powerful Ford V8 engine from I believe it's the GT500. You can pretty much swap into nearly every Ford. Except this one. This one didn't get that engine swap. But I think it's a Gymkhana car or something. I can't remember what I was doing with this. I need to go back and drive a bunch of these cars. Maybe that'll be the next video. Driving the random crap I found in my garage. Best title ever. This is a fully maxed out 458 Italia. Or unless you can put the Enzo engine in it, and I didn't. An Eagle Talon TSI Turbo that I picked up one day to race against a Mitsubishi Eclipse that was also fully maxed out. A TVR with 1,100 horsepower. I'm just gonna let that sink in for a little bit. Actually, I'm not quite sure if most people are really aware of how slidey TVRs are. The answers vary. And then I put a bunch of power in this one. Alright then, this is a racing Ferrari that I was doing differential experiments with. And by differential experiments I mean tuning. A BMW M5 that I only put a front splitter on and not a rear wing. I've done that with most of my cars because I was just trying to get the performance index as high as I possibly could go. This was a silly move now that I thought about it. A Ford Pinto that doesn't explode, but is really, really powerful. So it makes up for not exploding. I say that. I think I did quite like this car, unless it was sliding and I didn't like it. A Vauxhall VX220 that has the engine from what's basically a Buick Regal GS. And a really little car like that. A Corvette 01 that's been fully maxed out. This one I did put a proper body kit on. I may send this around the Nürburgring at one point, I don't know. A Gumpert Apollo, which was given to me by the game. A Ford Falcon. This car competes in a race series that's really popular in Australia called V8 Supercars. And they're meant to be really good fun to watch. I've never seen a V8 supercar race, but a bunch of people like them. A Bugatti Veyron that the game gave me. A BMW Z3M Coupe that I picked up at one point, and it's now absolutely insane. I believe this. Yeah, this one was also given to me by the game. An Audi S4 that I think I've put a racing engine in it. So it's absolutely insane. I went into this thinking I would have a bunch to say about these cars. Apparently I was wrong. This used to be the highest PR car I had, the Ferrari F430, which I got up to 266 miles per hour at one point. It has the same Enzo engine as the front-wheel drive Ferrari. That was a while back in this video. And then we have the really powerful racing Astra that races in GTM, which is like German touring cars. If anyone knows German, you could tell me what that says on the side. The comments or something. And speaking of the comments, tell me which of these you would like to see me drive. Also, leave me any other suggestions as to what I could do with what more I could do with Forza 4. And as always, I'll see you later. I've been Echo Waffle 8.